I'm not into predictions, okay? I don't like them. I think that what ends up happening is when you do a prediction, it's the only thing that anybody pays attention to out of what you say. Everything else is just background noise, right? Okay. What I'm about to say is going to sound like a prediction, but it actually isn't one. Good afternoon to you. Good Thursday afternoon. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is the new Double Shot show that comes your way at 4 p.m. Eastern every weekday. Steelers versus Ravens. I can predict this safely. 1:02 p.m. kickoff Sunday at Acrisure Stadium. I think I can also see ahead that whoever wins the game, regardless of how tight it is or whatever, because that never matters between these two rivals, is going to be decreed as, a Super Bowl contender. Okay? I know a lot of people cringe when you say stuff like, oh, Super Bowl, you can't say that, can't say that. Well, it's not jinxing anybody or anything if you're just talking about how good they are in the moment and what their trajectory is along the way. So I look at the rest of this conference because that's, of course, what it takes to get to the Super Bowl. And I look at the teams that are ahead of the Steelers. One of them is obviously the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs, I feel, should be the favorite, not just because they're undefeated, but because they're the Chiefs and because every time it starts getting dark outside, the Chiefs ramp up their game. Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce in particular will just rise up somehow, magically, no matter what kind of seasons they've had, whether they've been banged up, whether they've been set back in some other way, distracted, they're going to find a way to be their best selves in the games that matter the most. So let's put the Chiefs like right here. Okay, they're just kind of in their own bracket. And what you have underneath that, as I see it, are three teams. You have the Bills, who are 8-2 and certainly look legitimate in their own right. They have the best points differential in the conference at plus 97. You have Josh Allen performing at what might be argued is an MVP level right now. They have a good bit of stuff going for them. They lead the league in turnover differential, plus 13. Steelers are second at plus 9. The Bills are first at plus 13. That's all very good. And then you have these two teams that are going to meet here. Because after that, if you work your way down the list, the next teams that you see in the conference are the Chargers, who the Steelers already beat. And yeah, I know they weren't necessarily at full strength. Justin Herbert wasn't playing. It doesn't matter. Chargers are 6-3. I don't think anybody would put the Chargers up into this category. The Texans are 6-4. And after that, everybody else is 500 or less. Everybody else is 500 or less. So I just go ahead and say it, or at least go ahead and think it. Because the Steelers are 7-2, and they're behind only the Chiefs and the Bills. And the Steelers not only have their own plus 69 points differential, they have their own 4-game winning streak. And in that winning streak, this to me is the most pivotal factor of all, their offense has shot upward. Their offense has improved game by game by game. A lot of that is Russell Wilson. Some of that is, Jaylen Warren getting healthy and spelling Najee Harris. Some of it is Arthur Smith becoming more comfortable with guys. Some of it's just George Pickens playing out of his mind. And now you watch, some of it's going to be Mike Williams. But you're talking about a Super Bowl contender, not a prediction, not some, in booking my flights to go cover it in February or anything like that. But they're in that category. Maybe that category will get a little murky as the season goes along. Maybe the Chargers get super crazy hot and you had never seen that coming or whatever. I'm not envisioning that. I'm not looking at this bank of teams in the middle, Chargers, Texans, Broncos, Colts, Bengals, and saying, oh yeah, one of those is really feeling it. It's this group that's at the very top. It's Chiefs, Bills, Steelers, Ravens. Yes, they're a Super Bowl contender. When we come back, Chris Halleck DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects. Joined now by Chris Halleck over on a soggy south side. Nice to have some rain finally. I don't think we've had any rain for like a month and a half.
I was just thinking, I'm like, this is the first time I've had to make some sort of contraption outside to protect myself from the elements.
It used to rain here all the time. It hasn't at all in 2024. Chris, today Arthur Smith talked about his dealings with Russell Wilson, actually his dealings with all of the quarterbacks that he's navigated over the years in the NFL. And he sure made it sound like he's got himself a dream pupil, you know, the way, and actually that kind of dovetails with everything that we feel about Russ when we're around him, right? I mean, he just seems open and receptive to everything and everybody. It's just a really striking trait for a big time $30 million a year quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And to hear the way Arthur talked about Russ, and you know, we have a clip, but before he even said the stuff that we're going to show, like he even joked about like he's spending so much time with Russ that his wife has actually FaceTimed him to be like, where are you? Like, what are you doing? It's like, don't worry, I'm here. I'm here at the office with Russ, and we're just talking about football.
He's not clubbing on Carson Street, is he?
No.
No. Here's Smith talking about his dealings with Russ. This is good stuff.
Very well, but that's a lot of work. That's, you know, when we started working together, you know, every player I've ever had is unique. Certainly that spot, there had a lot of different personalities. And that's made me better as a coach. You know, I think sometimes, and it's not anybody's fault, but you get on a run with a great quarterback, and there's only, you know, you only know one way to do it. Sometimes because I've had to adapt, it's been times, you know, you could argue been frustrating or whatever, it doesn't matter, but that's forced me to be a better coach because every quarterback I've dealt with is completely different. Going back to Marcus or Tannehill, Matt Ryan, Marcus again, Ritter, Heineke, you know, now Justin, Russ, Kyle Allen, you know, and all the other guys are in those rooms. You got to have a plan because it's not one size fits all, but like anything, it's a good relationship, and so you just have to have honest communication. And sometimes you agree to disagree, and that's okay. I like debate, and usually with a veteran. But again, once you get to know people, you kind of earn each other's respect and trust. That's when you start seeing results like that. I mean, I have to continue, but he's been fantastic, and so has Justin and Kyle. But that's why you always take it with a grain of salt. You know, a lot of stereotypes put on people. Until you have your own experience and you get into a season with him, you find out. But he's been phenomenal in that regard.
And one of the things I've been most fond of saying about coaching, managing, whatever it is, across the scope of sports is that you don't coach the players you wish you had. You coach the players you actually have. It's not their job to adjust to you. It's your job to adjust to them. And with Smith, I hope that it doesn't get underappreciated that he's had to navigate here two very different quarterbacks in season, neither of whom were here last year. And by the way, he wasn't here last year. So there's been a lot of adjusting and learning and, you know, changing on the fly. And I get it. There are stuff you and I see, Chris, on a regular basis where you go, wow, 2nd and 9, what's he doing running and everything else here? But when you're talking about, you know, the kind of achievements that they've had through 9 games here, there's a hats off element.
Absolutely. And we can sit here and like you said, complain about some of the play calls, and no offensive coordinator in the history of the game bats 1,000 when it comes to play calls. There are some stinkers from the very best in the game sometimes. But the biggest thing is, what does the overall production look like? Well, the offense is significantly better this year than it's been in, well, years. So, especially the way it was over the past 3 seasons. And then you go, what really impresses me about Arthur Smith is the way he has handled everything. And his telling of the way he's handled the quarterback situation with getting to know not just Russ, but all the guys in the room goes in line with some of the other stuff that's impressed me about, okay, I like to run this type of offense, but guess what? I also know that Najee has certain strengths, and I can't just force him to be Derrick Henry. He's not Derrick Henry. Nobody is. And so I've got to play to his strengths. I've got to play to Jalen Warren's strengths. Just overall, that to me, like you said, it's a hats off thing that you have to give to the offensive coordinator who's put together a better offense than what this team has had.
And at the same time, I think we can also argue strongly that he has still somehow stuck to his vision. He has stuck to what his sense for a strong Pittsburgh offense should be. And I'll give you an example here. You'll see the tight ends, you'll see the wide receivers that get aligned out there. You're mentioning it all the time in the press box. So look at this. They're going with 11. They're going with 12. Okay. But you'll also see that the guys who are on the field most often getting the snaps are the ones who are doing what? They're blocking.
Yep.
He doesn't let go of that. He doesn't say, I'm going to adjust by having a bunch of, little wide receivers who don't like to block, who don't like physical contact. He will, and we saw this the other day in Landover, he'll say to Darnell Washington, I need you right here. Muth, take a blow here. Okay. I need to get that big push. He'll unapologetically put Van Jefferson out there. He'll unapologetically bring Van Jefferson with him from Atlanta. Okay. Yeah. Because he sees there's certain things about his offense and what he sees in it that he's not going to compromise.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be frustrating at times when you see 11 personnel out there, which is 3 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 tight end, and that 1 tight end is Michael Pruitt. You'd prefer to see Pat Freiermuth, you'd prefer to see Darnell Washington, not the number 4 tight end on the depth chart, and that's nothing against Michael Pruitt. It's just he's obviously got a role and being the lone tight end on the field. But again, like you said, there's a method to that madness, so to speak. It's the same reason to ask Calvin Austin to go out there to try to stick his face in the C gap and block a linebacker. Like, you're not going to ask him to do that. You can ask Allen Robinson to do that. That's what happened last year because Allen Robinson has the capability of doing that. So you want to make sure you're not like asking guys to do something that they just can't do. And so while the personnel choices can be frustrating at times, and I think also shows the limitations of the roster, Arthur Smith, like you said, has really kind of rode that line pretty well of doing what he wants to do, but then also at the same time developing an offense so that roles can be expanded beyond maybe what somebody might have been able to do and may not have been able to do.
Now, just to throw a personal touch onto this, for anybody who doesn't have the opportunity to engage in things like this, Chris and I will talk regularly to Smith, even right after a game. And he's so down to earth. He's so real. And he's just brutally honest about something that worked or didn't work or why it didn't work. And I got to tell you, I'm not going to keep burying Matt Canada into oblivion. Okay. Yeah. But after years of that, and not that how these guys are with us matters, but to me, what happens is you get a sense for how they are with themselves and how they are with other people who do matter, not me and Chris. Okay. If I get the sense, and I did for years, that Canada was just locking himself up in an office down the hall and not dealing with reality, guess what? That turned out to be accurate. Okay. And that ends up playing out on the field. Smith comes up to me in Denver right after the game and says, how many points do you think we left out on the field today? Do you remember this? Okay. Yep. All right. And I'm like, I don't know, Coach. I haven't really studied it just yet, but it sure felt like there were a few. Yeah, there were a few. there were a few. And they referenced some calls that were missed, some executions that were missed. He goes, but we're there. We're there. This was back in Denver. That was a while ago. Okay.
Yeah.
And all he's done and all the offense has done since then is to implement more things, get different players involved, and, of course, figure out a way to install Russ.
Yeah, and that continues to be a work in progress, obviously, because Russ has only played 3 games with this offense. But the more and more they play, the more the offense is going to be able to do. Because it's the same thing that we saw during September when the playbook is still pretty limited, and then as they continue to go along, the playbook gets a little bit bigger. It's going to be the same thing for Russ too. That playbook is going to get bigger, and this is a perfect time for the offense to start hitting an even bigger stride or an even higher level because, well, these last 8 games really freaking matter because there's 6 divisional games in them.
When we come back, J1Q.
Safety is a habit. Gun safety and responsible storage are no different. Help prevent gun accidents, misuse, and theft. Keep firearms safe and secure when not in use. For safe storage options, visit projectchildsafe.org.
Time now for J1Q, and for that we head up I-79 to Allen.
Hi, DK. This is Al from the northern suburb of Meadville. I have a question about the receivers. It seems that I see Washington's receivers running wide open in this last game. And if Jaden Daniels had been able to connect, he would have carved us up. But when I see the Steelers on offense, I don't see anybody open. Is it my perspective from television, or is this the case? Thank you.
Alan, it's now, thanks to NFL's next-gen stats and other advanced analytics that are available even to common folk like us, obvious that the Steelers are not good at getting open. Now, George Pickens, as he'll happily remind anyone who asks, is always open, and that's a great start. But, and I've been mentioning this a lot this week, you don't want John Harbaugh to be able to single focus on any player on your offense because he'll try at least to find a way to take them out. Now, the rest of these guys, they're just not getting open. Alan, it's not your imagination. You could either be inside the stadium and just watch these guys, and that's what I've been doing from the press box. You can check out the All-22 film and just follow Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson and whoever else, and you're going to see that there's not separation. I don't know how many times I can tell you that I've been, well, this is a positive thing, but really impressed with Russell Wilson's ability to, he'll roll out to one side or the other, and you think, where are you going, Russ? There's nobody open, man. And you know he's not going to take off with the ball because he's not doing that anymore. And you'll think, what's he even going to try? Well, he'll either throw the ball 20 rows deep. We saw him do that a couple times in Washington, or he's going to somehow find the one individual who did get open or who got open late. But what you don't see, Al, and it's a big, big problem, and it's been one, since day one of this season, that Austin and Jefferson aren't getting open. Now, can Mike Williams do that? Yeah, you give him a straight line and you give him some time and you let him find himself within the offense. But look, Williams himself was joking around that he doesn't even know the playbook yet. So the kind of getting open that we're talking about here, well, I can invoke an old friend here and mention Deontay Johnson, because Deontay wasn't good at a lot of things, but he was great at getting open, elite at getting open, per all these same metrics that I just mentioned. This team needs some of that. This team needs arguably a lot of that. So no, it's not it's not an illusion for you. It's real. It's real, and it has to get better. And the faster I think that Williams specifically gets onto the moving train, you're going to see the Steelers become better in this regard. But you know what another solution is for this? Throw to Pat Freiermuth. Do that, because he doesn't even need to be open? I appreciate the question, Alan. I appreciate everybody who checks out the new Double Shot Show. We're going to have another one of these tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern.